Every time I hear a leftist say that the US Constitution is outdated and needs to be modernized, I really have to laugh. Because that kind of statement assumes that the person speaking is in a better position to determine what is best for the United States of America than the people who wrote the Constitution in the first place. It must assume, that human beings have changed so radically in the last few hundred years that the fundamental rules which determine our success or failure as a species have changed, and that modern politicians possess superior knowledge that must be used to set up a new set of rules. Well, you see the source of my amusement. This occurred to me recently when I saw that a technology pioneered by Benjamin Franklin is being used to build super efficient new electric motors, which are 80% more efficient, more precise, don't use rare earth metals, and don't have any permanent magnets. Franklin was a brilliant man, no question about it, but in many ways, his enduring success is a product of the environment that he operated in. It must be, because so many visionary thinkers emerged from this era that it defies logic to believe this was a random occurrence. The founding of the United States was, I believe, unique in human history. You had a situation where a group of people were able to start with an almost completely clean slate to rebuild human society based on their observations of what worked previously and what had not worked previously. Their goal was not to anticipate every conceivable nuance of how humanity would develop in the future. It was to devise a set of rules most conducive to the overall success of humans as a species. This has not changed for a very long time, nor will it. It's not an accident that freedom of speech is in the very First Amendment. Now, the founders did not pretend to know that what we would be speaking about 250 years in the future, but they did know that we had to be free to speak about it. Without the ability to openly discuss opposing views, even some that we find objectionable, humans cannot succeed. They can't succeed. Why? Because the only way to determine what is the best course of action is to determine which ideas work and which ideas don't. It's not at all uncommon for ideas that people find to be, at least at first, offensive, turn out to be the most successful. And this, I think, gets to the root of why the instinct of the left is always to suppress free speech. Their ideas don't stand up to rational scrutiny. It's therefore necessary to repress open, rational scrutiny in order for their cult of ideas to be implemented. This is also why, after having first embraced free speech in time periods like the 1960s, leftists ultimately turned to suppressing this freedom because it became increasingly obvious over time that they were wrong. Unable to accept that their core philosophy of a restricted and government-controlled society was provably wrong, they saw this as the only option available to them. The irony is that leftists have had their own founding fathers. We know them as Lenin, Marx, Trotsky, and many others. They too had an opportunity to remake society unburdened by the mistakes of the past. But what they did, unfortunately, was amplify the mistakes of the past into a society that became one of the most oppressive and cruel in human history. Also, probably not coincidentally, one of the least objectively successful in human history. So it's not as though we don't know what works. We know the ideas of the American founding fathers work. We know that the ideas of the Russian Revolution do not work. Not only is this philosophically and logically true, but probably more importantly, it is statistically provable. I think we can look at the US Constitution in somewhat the same way that we should look at Ben Franklin's hydroelectrostatic motor, invented way back in the 1700s. The fundamental nature of electricity has not changed, but new developments in technology have given us ways to make this technology even more efficient and useful. We humans have a tendency to look at events during our development through a negative lens. The Industrial Revolution, abhorred by many leftists, raised the standard of living across the planet in a way never seen before. The information age, as a practical matter, has continued that upward trajectory despite many efforts to quash it. The fundamental nature of electricity has not changed, nor has the fundamental nature of human beings. The extent to which you facilitate freedom for human beings, as envisioned in the U.S. Constitution will determine the extent of their success. The extent to which you restrict freedom for human beings as envisioned during the Russian Revolution and in every failed leftist experiment since then will determine the extent of their failure.